In this video, we're going to be taking a look at adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. Now, you may have this reaction that's right there on the screen, but it's important to understand that even though the denominators are not the same, we need to have no fear because equivalent fractions are here. And in this video, you're not only going to learn how to add and subtract fractions or have a review of that, but we're also going to figure out how to find like denominators using the LCD, or least common denominator. We're going to find that first, then we'll be able to add and subtract very, very easily. So I want you to write the following notes down in your notes, and it's important to understand that whenever you're adding or subtracting fractions with unlike denominators, the first step is finding the least common denominator, or the LCD. Now I'm going to show you quickly how to find the LCD, and then we will work through these types of problems together in this video. Okay, so let's say, for example, I'm adding 1/4 plus 2/5. Okay, you cannot do that without a common denominator. So in order to find the LCD, or least common denominator, what I do is I just write 4 and 5, and I will just write multiples of 4 and 5 until I have one that is common. So what I usually like to do is I usually like to write the first 5 out for 4. Okay, so I'll write 4, 8, so just think of skip counting by 4s, 12, 16, and then 20. And then I'll go to my 5. Sometimes you'll find an LCD, sometimes you'll have to keep going. So 5, we have 5, 10, 15, 20, and then 25. So what I did is I listed my multiples of both denominators, okay? And then from here I'm going to compare my two lists. Now if there's not a common one, we may have to keep going. Okay, however, I do see a 20 in my 4 column and a 20 in my 5 column, or 5 row and 4 row. Okay, so that means my LCD is 20. So that means our denominator is going to change to 20, and then we know if you're going to change that 4 to a 20, that means you multiplied that 4 by 5, and then you multiplied that 5 by 4 to get to 20, and so we do need to change the numerators as well. Okay, we'll get into this a little bit more detailed as we move on. Okay, then finally, both fractions, 1/4 would be changed to 5/20, 2/5 would be changed to 8/20. Now that we have common denominators, we can just simply add the numerators together, giving us 13. Denominator stays the same for 13/20. Okay, we'll do some more of these problems. I'll do some more of these problems for you, and then I'll have you join in just a couple steps here. Okay, so we have 2/9 plus 2/3. Okay, first of all, I'm going to find my LCD. Okay, so I will write my 9 and my 3. Okay, so I'm going to skip count by 9, the first 5 multiples of 9, so 9, 18, 27, 36, 45. Same with my 3, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Okay, so I can see in my 2 rows that 9 is actually in both rows, and that's the least common denominator. Okay, the LCD for 9 and 2/9 and 2/3 is actually going to be 9. Now, here's when it can get a little confusing. Since I'm not going to have to change my 9 at all, the only thing I have to do is change my 2/3. My 2/9 is actually going to stay the same. So what I will do, my 2/3, or my LCD, let me write it down here, is going to be 9. 2/3 is going to need to be changed. Okay, that means I multiplied my 3 by 3 in order to get to 9. My numerator, I'm going to need to multiply by 3 as well, to 6/9. Okay, so I will write 6/9 over here. 2/9 will actually stay the same since my LCD was 9. And then from here, once we have a common denominator, we can simply add the numerators together. 2 plus 6 is going to give me 8. The 9 will stay the same for 8/9. So the first step is finding that LCD. So I'm going to do one more problem for you, and then I'll have you join in just a second here. 3/4 plus 1/6. First thing we need to do is we need to find a common denominator by finding that least common denominator. Okay, so what I will do, and I usually like to start out with the denominator that's least, okay, because whenever you have one like this, even though I started out with my 9, if I see my 3 goes into my 9, we don't have to do the next denominator. Okay, so first of all, write the first 5 multiples of 4. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. First 5 multiples of 6. 6, 12, 18, 24, and 30. Okay, I can see my LCD is 12. I have 12 in this row and 12 in this row. There's not a smaller common multiple here. So my LCD is going to be 12. Now what I will do is just erase this section here, so I can have a little bit more room. Okay, LCD is 12. Now I need to figure out what I need to do to my 4 to get to 12. I know I need to multiply my 4 by 3 to get to 12. And because of that, I'm going to need to multiply my 3 by 3 as well. Okay, 3 times 3 will give me 9. 4 times 3 will give me 12. So 9/12. And then from here, my 6, I know I need to multiply that by 2 to get to 12. My 1, I need to multiply by 2 because whatever I do to my denominator, I must do to my numerator. 1 times 2 will give me 2. 6 times 2 will give me 12. Now I have my denominators equal, and then from here I can just simply add my numerators together. 9 and 2 will give me 11. Denominator will stay the same as 12 for the grand total of 11/12. Now I want you to do this problem with me. The first thing we have is 5/6 minus 8/15. First thing we need to do is figure out the least common denominator. The way we do that is we just write the multiples, first 5 multiples of each number, and see if we can find a common multiple, and if that does not work, we have to keep going. So I'll write the first 5 multiples of 6. 6, 12, 18, and I just choose the first 5. You can choose the first 6, 7, 8, whatever you would like, but I would not do any less than 5 though. Okay, so those are the first 5 multiples of 6. First 5 multiples of 15 would be 15, 30, 45, 60, and then 75. So you can see my LCD is going to be 30. I have 30 in this row, 30 in this row, and it's the least common number here. So LCD, least common denominator. And actually, if we're just looking at the numbers all by themselves, it'd be the least common multiple. Okay, so 30 is my LCD. Now we need to figure out what we do to 6 in order to get to 30. We multiply that 6 times 5. Then that means we need to multiply my numerator times 5 as well. We have 25/30. And then 15, multiply that by 2. Multiply my 8 times 2. This gives me 16/30. So now what we have to do is we need to subtract just the numerators from each other. 25 minus 16 is going to give me 9. And we know the denominator will stay the same for 9/30. Okay, now we have 4/5 minus 3/10. Now I'm going to show you a little shortcut here. Okay, I'm first of all going to start out with my 5, listing my multiples. Now I'm going to list 5, 10. Now whenever you come to a multiple that is the actual denominator of the other fraction, okay, that means that is going to be your least common denominator. Okay, because if I were to start out with my 10, my first multiple of 10 is obviously going to be 10. Okay, so that's a little shortcut that you can actually do whenever you're finding the LCD. For example, in the previous screen, for my 9 and 3, if we would have started out with my 3, we would have 3, 6, 9. That would, we can see that was my least common denominator. So that's a little shortcut that you can actually use. If you want to list out the first 5 of each, that's fine. Okay, whenever it goes into it still. However, whenever that smaller denominator goes into that greater denominator equally, that means you can actually stop, and that's going to be your least common denominator. Okay, so my LCD right away I know is going to be 10. That means we're not going to change this 3/10 at all, we're just going to change the 4/5. So that 5, we're going to need to multiply that 5 by 2. That 4 times 2, that's going to give me 8. 5 times 2 will give me 10. 8/10. I'm just going to write my 3/10 again. Denominators are the same, makes it very simple. 8 minus 3 is going to give me 5. Denominator will stay the same at 10. 5/10, we do need to simplify if possible. 5/10 will actually give me 1/2 for my answer. Okay, what I want you to do now is subtract these two fractions, add these two fractions all by yourself. Remember, you need to find that least common denominator first. Once you find that least common denominator, you can add and subtract very very easy. Okay, and whenever you're finished with these two problems, you can press play and I'm going to have the answers for you. So pause the video now. So here are the two answers that you should have. For 7/10 minus 1/4, you can see that the LCD was 20. So we changed the 7/10 to 14/20, the 1/4 to 5/20. We subtracted those two. 9/20 was our answer. And then finally 5/8 plus 5/6. The LCD was 24. And then we have 15/24 plus 20/24 gave us the answer 35/24. And then changing that improper fraction to a mixed number gave us 1 and 11/24. So this is how you add and subtract fractions with unlike denominators. If you have any questions, please come and see me.